Hello, everyone. It is June the 12th of 2024, and it's Manga Day, Wednesday, like it is every week, except last week, which it wasn't, but it was a different day, but it's Wednesday again. All things are normal.
Yes, everything according to Keikaku.
Yeah, I think.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure if contextually that applies or not,
Yeah.
but we'll say it does. Let's
Now,
just continue on.
did you see, in reference to manga, that manga was the Wordle of the day a couple days ago? And a lot of people are really pissed about it.
Let me tell you the number of ways I would not have known that, Quinn. Number one, I don't pay any attention to Wordle. Number two, I don't pay any attention to when people get upset about a weeaboo stuff entering somewhat the mainstream. Number three, what were we talking about again?
There we go. I have a little story I want to tell you, though. I guess this
Okay.
isn't really a story, just experience. So tomorrow is my late brother's birthday. I call it Mikey Day. So it's like it's a good time to just like celebrate him and like get into like just remind yourself of the things that like he really enjoyed. Just a fun reminder of him. So I have his iPod. It's one of the few keepsakes I kept of his. And my brother was, I don't want to say old school, just technologically illiterate, I guess. So he only ever had iTunes as like one giant library. He never made playlists.
Never subcategorized it or anything.
Exactly. So everything in there is just one giant collection. It's over like 30 hours long. And I was like, let me go and make this a Spotify playlist. So everybody, like all of our family and his friends, like people can listen to this. And as I'm going through it, I know my brother had, let's say, eclectic tastes.
Okay.
He loved Metallica. Ton of Metallica in there, of course. He grew up in the 2000s, so there's a lot of butt rock in there. That happens.
Sure.
He enjoyed older music, so there's some Paul Simon in there. That's my dad's favorite band, so it makes sense.
Okay.
Steven Taylor, my mom really loved him, so it makes sense there.
Okay.
He's got a little Europop, a little Cascadia, a little rock sop, a little Eric Prides.
It's one of those things where it's like, okay, I guess that, if you were around that age at that time, then like, I guess you would have a little bit of that in there. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
He has a little classical music, little Moonlight Sonatas, a little Beethoven sympathies.
If there's anything that I love more than anything, it is starting off with some Saint Anger and transitioning into some Bach.
Yeah, exactly. And then you wrap
go from high to high right there.
And then you wrap it up with a bunch of popular movie songs like fucking Playing with the Boys from fucking whatever, the Top Gun, or the Imperial March from Star Wars. But as I was going through this list, there was constant times where I would just be shocked because I'd be like, Miley Cyrus can't be tamed. Like, all right. Or like Adam Lambert, you have Gangnam Style in here? Like, you didn't die in 2016, okay? This had time to ruminate. And again, this was one giant playlist. So when he wanted to run, he just hit play. But I'm scrolling down. This is through alphabetical order. So, it's taken me a while to do it just because it's time consuming. And I'm finally, getting towards the end. And I get to U2. And I'm like, all right, he's got a couple U2 songs. I never really knew he was a U2 fan, but there's a lot of those. And I thought, yeah, I'm sure there's some. I like a couple U2 songs. I don't have them on my playlist necessarily, but I like them. And I know some I don't know any of these U2 songs. But I'm like, all right, maybe he was into some deep cuts.
Oh, it's when they forcibly downloaded the album.
And then I keep looking, I'm like, these are all from the same album.
Right.
And then I realized my brother never removed the free U2 album that everyone got. Again, he only died 2 years ago. So he had that U2 album in his playlist, which again, he used for everything. Driving, running, just personal listening. He used it everywhere. He had that YouTube album on his playlist. It had to have been like 8 years. Just never figured out how to remove it. I almost died laughing when I realized he had, because I had to look it up. There was a part of me, it's like, you know what would be really funny? He didn't, I don't think he knew his passing was coming, but if he late in moment did decide, like, I'm going to put a full YouTube album on there, but not the free one, I'd be like, that's a good joke. But I did have to check. I was like, no, this is this is the free YouTube album that everyone got that my brother just never removed.
Oh, man. It is weird whenever you have one of those kind of things intrude. I knew someone in college that he loaned me his laptop one time because I had spilled Coke on mine, and I had to write a paper like that was due like that day or something. So I was like, I need to borrow your laptop so I can type this up and stuff. So of course, while I'm working on it, I decided like, yeah, I need some like music. So I listened to his library, and then later on, we're like arguing about. I think we were arguing about Metallica, honestly, because I think that he was arguing that Saint Anger wasn't that bad or something like that. And I was like, you have some of the songs from the new album on here, and you don't have Saint Anger on there. And he's like, just because I have some music on my computer doesn't mean that I like it. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Why is it here? It's so easy to get rid of it if you don't like it.
Just delete it. And it's like, look, I have a fairly sizable music collection on my computer. Like, I'm sure that there are countless people with way larger libraries than I do, but it's a matter of like, look, I've kind of had the same library for over 10 years at this point, and like every time that I get a new PC, I just copy everything over, so I never get rid of any of it. Sure, this guy had like 40 songs on the computer total. So it was like, all right, when you're at that point, it feels like you're picking and choosing.
I was gonna say, so a lot of stuff
these songs
didn't
that
make
you don't like.
Oh my god, like that's insane. Like, I guess we all, like, and this, one of the weird things was, like, so immediately the first thing I do after I finish this, I post it for my family. We all have, like, a group chat, our siblings. And, like, there's a generational divide. Because like, my little sister and brother are, like, a decade younger than me. I mentioned to them, like, about the U2 album, and neither of them have any thoughts on it or anything like that. And I was like, no, I don't think you understand. It is insane that you would still have this album on there, but whatever. But they pick out, like, they really narrow in on other artists that they're like, oh my God, he's listening to, I think, what was the one? They got upset at Magic by B.O.B., which I was like, look, I don't support that. I don't support his shape of the world beliefs, but I do support that song as being a banger. I don't know what to tell you, but like, there's just songs that they'll pick out that they're like, can you believe? And I'm like, no, Newfound Glory. He has Newfound Glory on his iPod. What are we doing here? So it's been a fun experience for me.
It's like when One Republic was chosen to do the Kaiju number 8 ending, and it's like, why?
Were they? I missed this discussion, this discourse. That's
just because it's like, why is One Republic doing this?
Oh, please tell me they just took an old song and just like, so it's like apologize over the end of it.
I don't think so, because it's posted on their channel as like, it says Kaiju number 8 ending in the description for it. So
fair enough.
Just sometimes that kind of thing just like happens occasionally. It's like, why did this particular song come up? But
no idea.
Oh man, what a weird time capsule that can be, though.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, there are a lot of fun songs to look through it on. The one of the ones, I don't know why I got such a flashback with this. Let me see if I could find it real quick. 'Cause like, I honestly don't even remember the name of this band, but like when I saw it my brain did take like a moment. Edema Immortal, which if you listen to it is like a generic rock band. But the moment I started listening to this, I was like, why is this familiar? And then I realized it's because for Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, this band did a music video for the song that I think you could watch on the disc.
Oh my god, that's so weird.
And that enchanted my brother enough to keep it on his permanent iPod playlist forever. So, yeah.
I mean, whenever you see one of those like kind of like less successful bands, like, oh, we did a band for this, it's like I think it was like Saliva or something like that did a song that was on like the Spy Hunter game that came out in the 2000s, and it's like, why is this?
All right.
There was a music video that was on the disc. Yeah, it's just like a weird thing that sometimes they do.
Yeah.
I'm still hung up though on the every single thing that I ever listened to just in one playlist with no organization, and he would use it for running. So I just imagine it was like, yeah, here we go, Fur-Elise, this is my running song.
Basically, like I know a small smidgen of what he experienced because I used to run with a similar sort of thing. Like now I just have a Spotify playlist for running that I listen to. But back in the day, I know what it was like that like I would sometimes be like, well, I'm just going to throw my whole library on because I haven't updated my running playlist in a while. And there's so many times where you're like, yeah, I'm not running to Hurt by Johnny Cash. I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't work that way. On his list, by the way. So like, God. Another one of those songs that could just come up where you're like, I would just stop running. Like I would get off the treadmill. I would go sit down on the bench and cry. I don't know how you did this.
All right. So we do have Manga to talk about today. I guess we should probably do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a little bit weird right now, so I apologize if I fade a little bit at certain weird points. But we're going to start off with My Hero Academia, as we normally do. Though for how much longer? That is the question.
Yeah.
No clear answer in sight as of yet. It's chapter number 425, Unseasonable. And we begin this chapter with an ending and a beginning, which is graduation day. It's something that I hadn't really considered that might happen, but yeah, I mean, they did mention very explicitly, although briefly, that the school year promotion was being delayed because, you know, the country was at war, essentially. And so we see that, you know, like Sun Eater and Nejire are graduating because they were in their third years. There's a big celebration. I do like the touch that Present Mike got a full DJ table because that's the exact kind of thing you want to have happening at a high school graduation ceremony.
Ba 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 ba, wicka wicka work.
There's a mention that where they give some props to Principal Nezu because essentially he actually was able to see beyond the conclusion of the battle and sets up stuff so that they could, you know, recover and stuff. He could do a lot of coordination like that, which is a nice little detail to have. And then they have a very brief mention of a character that Nick would be beaten in the street if he tried to throw at Quinn to try and guess, which is, oh, look, it's the underclassman rep, Mawata Fuwa. Look, there she is. There she is. Tiny, it's very tiny, right down in there. You can just make out her facial features if you zoom in 20 times. And then Mirio gives a speech because he is given the commencement, and everyone is shocked when he just kind of starts off just very seriously, just, you know, goes right into it. No jokes. But he says, like, you know, hey, we've all, you know, lost a lot and we haven't gained anything at all from all of this because, you know, it was a war. It sucks. Heroes fight to bring a negative situation back to square one. That's just what we do. And he congratulates everyone who has joined together and done all this. And he says, today was not the goal. A world without smiles and humor has no bright future. We seek a positive world where people can live their lives in good cheer, and that is the finish line we're racing toward.
There you go.
Very nice. Calling back to, of course, his master Sir Night-Eye, and in terms of his words and stuff, but also just in a very, very good, commencement address kind of thing. But then he snaps his fingers and he says, "Today marks the start of the journey for us. So all who have yet to graduate, I say, peace out." And the wall behind him breaks and shatters as the tank that was used in the beauty pageant during the school festival arc smashes through the wall behind him, and he bamfs out of his clothes in front of it.
Truly was like, I hope Nick can explain what happens here, because I was like, I don't know who this tank is a reference to. I don't know what's going on there. I'm glad you were here to help me through this.
Her name, and I did not have this memorized. It's the girl in the foreground, BBB Kenranzaki, who was literally only relevant during that pageant thing, the thing that barely got any focus at all, but the Nejire one.
Okay.
Anyway, Class 1A is now Class 2A, temporarily. Aizawa indicates like, normally you guys wouldn't have the same homeroom teacher 2 years in a row, but extenuating circumstances, you're all with me for another year, I guess. So it's like, all right, yeah, whatever, hand wave it, that's fine, it's fine.
Sure.
But there is one thing to address, and that is that Aoyama comes in, and he says like, "Yep, I'm leaving UA." This was a decision that he had made previously, and he is sticking to it. And so, a couple of people try and say like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And he says, "Look, I was given the option to stay enrolled." He did, kind of set everything right, but he says that I have to make up for this. I've got to atone, and once more, I'll walk the path of heroes. Aw. And he says, "I reached out to you all, and you took your hands in mine. One day, I promise I'll be worthy of standing beside you with my head held high." And as he does this, he also goes, "Here, have some cheese. Have some cheese, Midori." It just almost force feeds it to him.
It's very funny, because Midoriya's like mouth is closed. It's very much like it's very much of the energy of that guy who used to try to feed Ryan Gosling cereal. Like, it's very much like there's a screen of Deku. If you haven't understand this reference, it sounds insane, I guess. Just know that a guy was famous for trying to feed Ryan Gosling cereal through the screen. Like, he would just hold.
Oh, okay.
He passed away, and then Ryan Gosling ate cereal to like honor him. It was very cute. Well, it's sad he died, but not Ryan Gosling, the other guy.
Right.
Anyway, what else happens in this chapter?
So Aoyama bids a tearful farewell, and they say like, "Oh, and there's also a new surprise, a new member of Class A," and of course it's Shinso. Makes sense. A member of the year one is leaving the hero course. He steps in and went after he'd had the try and everything.
Yep.
So everyone's like, "Oh wow, you're joining our class," and then Aoyama does kind of get like a little bit upset that all of a sudden all the farewells are like the focus is off of him, and so like, can we have a farewell party for me? There's a weird moment, let's just say that, where Hagakure's quirk goes a little weird because Aoyama's like shooting naval beams off, and those mess with her invisibility. So Mineta sees her face and is like, "Oh god, she's so cute," and then Aizawa like strangles him. It's like, all right.
Now, Nick, is that enough to start a shipping? Like, I shouldn't say shipping. Like, these characters could never talk. You could do shipping. Is this enough that you think there is a real tangibility to that becoming a relationship?
I really honestly do not care. I could not manage to rub two fucks together in order to give them to me.
Wow. Okay.
But there's also something else to address. It's like, look, see, a character. She's got a face and everything. Mawata Fuwa. She addresses the class and says, second and third years in the hero course are going to join the greater restoration effort, and I'm in charge of organizing us. So in addition to all the ongoing restoration stuff, we'll be involved in the nationwide effort to maintain law and order. You've made it past All Might's retirement, the war in Jakku, and know that after each big battle that winds up in textbooks, there's sure to be a period of chaos that the books don't talk about. Fair enough. So she says all that, and she refers to Aizawa as Ire Sensei, like E-R-A Sensei, because it's Eraserhead. And everyone's like, what? What, you call him that? It's like, yeah, I used to be in his class. I take it he didn't expel all of you. Remember when that was a thing? In like chapter like 15?
No.
Aizawa was famous for expelling a student every single year.
This entire 2-page thing is me just blankly staring at this and being like, this is a page for fans like Nick who remember what happens. I have no idea who this girl is. You could tell me anything and I'd be like, yeah, sure. You could be like, oh, she was part of Overhaul's group. Like, yeah, why not? I guess. Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah, sure.
The most distinctive thing about her are what appear to be puffy earrings that hang from her ears, but those could very well just be like a manifestation of her quirk, as far as I know. We know so little about this one.
I'm gonna look this up. I'm gonna look up everything we know about Mawata. What is it? Fuwa?
Yeah, you're gonna see a lot of citation to click it and see My Hero Academia chapter 425 in there. She leaves.
Unknown quirk.
Yep.
Mawata's quirk is unknown. However, given that she is a second-year student, her quirk is likely very strong and well trained by Shota.
That does not necessarily mean anything.
Hold on.
No.
Nick, chapter appearances. I haven't hit expand yet. Do you want to say there's more than 125? Or whatever number you just gave me?
425.
425? So she was in 254.
Really?
That's the debut. There's a lot of absence.
Keep scrolling, Quinn. Keep scrolling.
She appears in chapter 422, Izuku Midoriya Rising.
I'm going to have to check up on the My Hero Wiki's homework here and see if they're accurate. Anyway, so time skip very briefly. The class is like, just kind of like chilling out together after class, and they say, "Oh my God, like we're gonna be senpai soon. There's gonna be a new class heading in, and we're gonna be their upperclassmen and stuff." It's kind of crazy. There is a weird moment where Sero looks at Uraraka and says, "At least we got our moment's rest, so to speak." And Uraraka goes, "Jeez, lay off me already, Sero." Now, this is a very weird thing, even if you know the context of the remark, which is Uraraka's big speech that she gave to convince all the people taking shelter at UA to let Deku stay there so he could have a moment's rest. But it's like just such a weird thing to say in this context to reference that.
Remember when you gave a big speech and you managed to get our friend welcome back into the school? Dork.
Yeah, you dork. That was a weird thing you said, saying a very common thing.
Yeah.
That way.
I get they're teenagers, they don't have to make sense.
So then Deku comes up and is like, "Oh hey," and Uraraka is like, "Oh yeah, they had to give you like half an undercut because of your wounds. I hope it grows back in soon." Okay.
Fuck you. I think he looks good with it.
Also, I love Tokoyami has like really messed up feathers. He's just like this poor boy couldn't get them regrown in, I guess. A weird thing happens.
I was hoping you might be able to shed some context to who this is.
I cannot. I do not know. I did not check any of the forums or anything, so I am not sure. We see a pair of what appear to be scissors, because they later go snip, snip. There is someone who has what appears to be like bandages or some other form of bindings around their mouth, and they have messed up hair, and they are crying, and they are making their way through the ruins of all the battles and stuff, wandering around barefoot. That is all we see of them. I do not know if this is a reference to someone that we had seen previously. I cannot remember this showing up previously.
Okay.
If it did, sorry. There are certain things that are beyond even my ability to reference for my
even more than Nick, master of Moha. That's what we say when
Maha.
when you say MHA, you say it phonetically. It's Maha.
That's right. Yeah. So all you people who are doing the weeaboo thing, where you pirate the series and then insist on calling it Boku no Hero Academia, yeah, call it Bana, and then we'll talk. Anyway. So, Todoroki indicates that he's not going to be able to make it to the farewell party because he's got stuff to do, and he makes his way off, seemingly to meet with Endeavor, who is currently sitting on the other side of a protective glass screen from Dobby?
It has to be
probably.
Dobby. How this motherfucker just keeps on surviving. Like, that's his real quirk, is he just can't stop living.
He just can't die because of burns, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably him. He's kind of totally unrecognizable currently, but that kind of makes sense. His whole body must be, like, barely there, considering that he was basically a skeleton previously.
You also don't really get to see. Like, it's not like an up-close shot or anything like that, so maybe it's more obvious once we get a closer look. Or maybe they'll, like, they twist us here, and they're like, actually, it's Mr. Compressed. And they're like, wow.
Actually, all for one survived again. It's one of his many, 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 many different pathways to victory.
Oh,
sorry,
my God.
Guys.
Yeah, the Demon Lord has a phase 5, it turns out. All right, it's a good chapter. I liked it. But there are things. It is curious because it feels like maybe like sort of the end of this series could just be like small little stories and then a big time jump and then small little stories and another big time jump to like, because I have heard some people say like, oh, I hope this series ends with class, eventually 3A graduating. Like people want to see like the graduation of the heroes maybe. But to do that, we'd have to like jump forward very quickly. We're not going to do another 400 chapters for a year or anything like that.
Per year, yeah.
Yeah, like it feels like 5, and then maybe we'll jump ahead again or something. I don't know. But, yeah, I don't know. There's some intriguing stuff. I guess we'll see.
Yeah. I will not bother to try and predict, as I've said.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do Undead Unluck, though.
Yeah, this is number 209. Shove it. So Nico is talking to Fuko, and he's just like, he explained about all the, fading away time paradox stuff. And Nico hasn't heard of this before. He's like, I can't think of any other reason this would happen. There's nothing in like the memories Apocalypse had. So, you know what? Don't worry about it. You focus on your mom and like getting this time paradox handled. And I'm going to handle the band members. So don't worry about it. Meanwhile, Fuko and her group are going to see Keita at her performance. No one's really there. It's like them and then like 3 other old people. And she starts to sing.
One of whom is sleeping.
Yeah, one person is napping, and one person is an old man who goes apparently because the sound of her voice hits so hard it cracks his back.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah. And he's very thankful for it. He's just like, another great job. You're doing it. So, very adorable. But unfortunately, Keita's manager tells her, like, hey, you're fired starting today.
People at your performance, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
Get out.
No one's coming to see you. It's not going well. So she's like, she's unfortunately me, where she's like, that's okay. Thank you for even letting me be in your presence. can I use the dressing room one last time? And then we cut to her walking home in her stage outfit. And Sean has a great face. He's like, why is she still in her stage clothes? And Fuko's like, is this just a hunch? But she probably showed up in the dress and then realized she forgot to pack a change of clothes to walk home in. So she has to just go through the shame of walking home essentially in your fucking costume, you know, that you wear on stage. But as she's
those are not shoes that are meant to be roughing it on the streets.
No. But as she's walking, imagine if you had to like walk home dressed like fucking Peter Pan or some shit. Like it would be a little embarrassing. But as she's walking home, she is stopped by a bunch of shopkeepers who all call her name. Like, oh hey, come here, Kate. I got something for you. Oh hey, come over here. Take this. And she leaves with like a couple bags and like a full backpack full of stuff. And Sean notes like, wow, she really is your mother. She's adored by like all sorts of people. And Fuko's like, yeah, it actually does kind of put a smile on my face. So she walks home to a kind of crappy looking apartment building. And she's like, all right, I'm going to go inside.
There's
Fuko.
This weird like brother and sister who live next door that have got like 8 dogs or something like that. It's really weird.
Is that a reference to something?
And a cat.
Oh, yeah, it does actually kind of look like Denji's apartment. All right. So Fuko's like, all right, I'm going to go upstairs and try to tell her about the band and everything like that and try to avoid the paradox. So she goes, she knocks on the door. Katie hears it and immediately comes to the door and is just like, I'm so sorry, Mr. Reita. I can't go. Oh, you're the girl from yesterday. And Fuko's like, oh, yeah, I've found replacements. So you know, Fuko's mom is obviously super excited. She's like, oh my gosh, you found replacements? And in only a day, you must have amazing connections. This is incredible. And Fuko's like, yeah, I'm not sure if they'll meet your expectations, but like, they won't cause you trouble. Like, they are going to be here for you. And she's like, no, this is great. Like, I had already given up. And I imagine it probably has to be strange, right? Like, this probably doesn't look like the place you would imagine somebody who was invited to such a big festival to live. Fuko's, of course, very nice. Like, oh, don't worry about it. But Katie's like, no, I'm not worthy. Like, the festival is an unbelievable gathering of all today's, like, greatest talents. And I wasn't invited based on popularity. I was recommended by the current top idol, Kururu. And Fuko's like, wait, how do you know Kururu? And she's like, back when we were starting out, we were in the same group together. And she was super incredible. So eventually, she got headhunted. She tried to bring me along, but I realized that I would only hold her back, so I sent her on her way. So Kururu wanted to stay with her. Fuko's mom was like, no, and kind of pushed him aside. But apparently, Kururu has been keeping tabs on her the whole time, and she wanted to, like, get this, you know, she knew that, you know, being on the big stage was a dream come true, so she gave her a shot. And she's like, my best friend gave me this. And she says, I'm always so lucky when it really counts. But I just can't keep up with what luck affords me. And she's just crying at this point. It's very, very sad. It's a great way to like capture the luck character again in someone new. And it's heartbreaking. She really feels bad that she feels like, because we know that she is naturally very unlucky. We've seen her do those things. Right. But she considers herself so blessed because she's like, I have all these great people around me. So she just lets herself.
People who take care of her when she needs it, yeah.
But she feels like because all these things happen, she just can't keep up with how fortunate she should be or anything like that. It's very sad. So she's like, oh, I know you found all these band members, and I know I shouldn't be like this. But Fuko just stands up and is like, hey, look, you've been giving it your all, haven't you? And no matter what the era is, when it comes time to seal a deal, people like you always delivered. And I stole that line from my partner. So let's do some training to build confidence in your skills. And they use UMA move to teleport Fuko into the Street Fighter training lab.
Yeah, just no warning whatsoever. It's like, let's just, teleport this woman who has no context for what's going to happen through a vortex, through which who knows what is seen as you transition from one spot on the globe to another.
Yeah. They just go straight into it. And Nico is there with Tella, Rip, and Mr. Billy. And all of them are hooked up to some of his orb machines that are basically like forcibly making them play instruments and such really well.
Learn!
Yeah, it's basically, he's like, so I want to see if I can use unforgettable on external targets. So I'm basically remembering how to do all these things, but making them go through the experience of it. So Fuko's like, all right, well, you can see what they're all going through. It can give you an instant skill boost, but it's going to be really brutal. You might even die. So do you want to do it? And if Fuko's mom's like, I might die. And we immediately see she's in there now. And I love it because, like, we see, like, the other hands are, like, doing stuff to, like, make them, like, shred guitars or, like, play piano. Yeah, hers is just, like, hard hand dances, essentially, with her gritting her teeth. So Nico talks to Fuko while this is all happening, and he's just like, hey, you sure about this? What about the paradox? Fuko's like, well, I did think about that, but I also don't think there's, like, a need to do things exactly like before. And I'll never accomplish anything by being passive. And the festival's, like, if the festival's a success, then it'll be fine. So let's make the most out of it and give her a banger of a performance. So, they note, like, oh, hey, Sean's giving, like, a note that what's-his-face or whatever is here. So they teleport Kata back. Fuko's dad is, like, knocking on the door. He's like, hey, I'm sorry I couldn't make it to your show. But, he just hears, like, a crash. He's like, oh, what's going on? Let me inside. He tries to, like, break down the door, essentially. It's like he's trying to get in there. And then she opens the door like the horror monster. Like, her eyes are wide and giant bags. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. I was just practicing. But that pretty much ends the chapter. Fuko just says, paradoxes can go shove it. Let's make this the sickest festival any loop has ever seen.
Yeah. Kind of just a very functional, like, this is how they're kind of, like, getting ready for this. But there is a nice emotional beat at the beginning to, establish, like, oh, no, there's an established connection between Kururu and Kaede. And I like how Fuko's just like, this is just completely different from how it was before. I think, for one thing, Kururu would be way too young in the previous loop for this to be possible. But it's, nice to get a little bit of spotlight on, let's face it, the person who is going to have the more permanent impact on the series at the end of this little arc. Because it does feel like, not just because this is a Fuko plotline, not a Kaede plotline, that, her parents are probably just going to, like, it feels like they're going to be done once they're finished in this mission, and then we're just going to, like, leave them so that, they can have Fuko in this loop or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it does feel like that's probably the best because although Kaede is likable, it doesn't feel like there's a lot to her because there's so much of her in Fuko that you can kind of see the bits that are in Fuko that aren't in her, that make Fuko a very interesting, compelling character. So it does kind of feel like I don't really want this character to stick around beyond this section because I don't feel like there is going to be a lot of point to that. But it feels like we're going to get something else beyond what we've been introduced to thus far. It feels like there's something that has not quite hit yet, that is kind of waiting in the wings, and I'm not sure what that is just yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's probably more to this plot, and we're obviously going to see Kururu at some point. But I like this chapter a lot. As I mentioned, I really liked how they kind of, structured Kaede's, issue with luck, and how it kind of, like, has, like, a sort of element to her. But, it's good. Like, it was emotional in a way that it needed to, and just, everything kind of worked.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to Blue Box, chapter 152, Because It's So Precious. Not the series. That's the chapter title. We open up this chapter with someone's phone alarm going off and them stopping it as they get up for the day.
At 5:50, which is early.
5:50 a.m., yeah. So At some point, we cut over to the gazebo that Taiki and Chinatsu sometimes hang out at in secret, so they can have some private time together. And Taiki is like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, that I've got to, go away for nationals." And Chinatsu says, "Hey, it's okay. It's this is important. Prioritize yourself." And Taiki's like, "Hey, I know this is an important day for you too. I know that you're going to be practicing when I'm out there, so." Yeah, but Chinatsu's still upset 'cause she's like, I wanted to cheer you on at nationals. Aww.
Yeah.
But and she also says, I bet I'm tens of thousands of times more depressed than you could ever imagine, Taiki, which is such a pouty little kid thing.
I was gonna say, like, there are moments where you forget these characters are teenagers a little bit, and that was the moment where you're like, you're a teenager. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I feel like when I'm depressed. When I be like, I bet I'm thousands of times more depressed than you understand.
Yeah, well, like, especially when someone says something like, "Don't worry about it," like, don't. It's fine, and they're like, "I don't think you really understand how sad I am." No, you're like, it's adorable, but I do get it.
Taiki says, "Hey, next year I'm gonna be stronger. And I'm going to win against Yusa, and I'll go to nationals in first place next year. Let's go together." Aw. And Chinatsu comes in close, and she gives Taiki a big hug while kneeling in front of him. And Taiki's, flustered and embarrassed because they haven't had a lot of, physical affection in their relationship still. And Chinatsu says, "This hug means it's a promise, and my feelings say we'll do our best." And I kind of wanted to touch you.
Aww.
But she does not stop hugging him. She's really leaning in, her face right in his shoulder. And Taiki, thinks for a bit about some of the teasing that he got from the Batman clubs, like, "Oh, you've got a girlfriend? Have you held hands? Have you kissed her?" And I like that even in the flashback, you can see Haruko is like, "You guys got to chill. Just calm down."
This is absurd.
They part a little bit, and so we see Taiki's perspective, which is just Chinatsu just right in front of him, kind of blushing still a little bit, and then she starts to kind of pet his head because she likes his hair and stuff, and she, however, pauses because she thinks about how Taiki has said, "Hey, let's just go at our own pace. We don't have anything to feel guilty about." Which, now that you think about it, from the perspective that they're currently in, kind of indicates that maybe one of the things Taiki was saying was, "Oh, we haven't gotten super serious yet, so that's why we don't have anything to feel guilty about."
We've essentially held hands. That's the grand extent of our emotional connection so far, really.
Mm-hmm. But as she's pausing there with, her hands on him right in front of his face and stuff, Taiki starts going, and he says, "Could you please understand how hard I'm holding back right now?" And so Chinatsu backs away, and Taiki's like, "Oh, I've got nationals, you've got entrance exams and stuff." And so Chinatsu is just like, "All right, let's go home." Yeah. And just puts her back on immediately.
She has that great ability to just be like, compartmentalize those thoughts, and she's like, "All right, let's go home."
And I'm sure that probably Chinatsu feels, in a way, better for Taiki to say that out now. Just like, "Oh, I really want to do stuff with you, but let's just not do it right now."
Yeah.
So they head out from the gazebo, and as they're partying, Taiki thinks, "I want to be careful as we go along because it's so precious." Which, I understand that, but because the dude's got a lot more to learn about relationships, but it's okay to want this to be special, but also you should allow yourself to be happy. Anyway, as he is getting set to leave, Chinatsu stops him, and she says, "Hey, Taiki, score." And he just remembers all the little times that she's encouraged him, in little moments and stuff, and it's nice. And we cut over to the National High School Athletic Badminton Tournament because, Quinn, this is a sports manga, and it's time for our big sports Thanks.
Yes! This is the Christmas bowl. Essentially.
Basically, I guess. It's like summer, right?
Yeah.
So,
you can have Christmas in summer.
you can.
Yeah.
If there's anything the Cartoon Network taught me when I was a kid, yes.
I mostly just learned about how to hit people with hammers. I watched a lot of Tom and Jerry.
Oh, okay.
I guess, yeah, that's another one of those things that I learned to set fire to buildings, Nick, didn't you? That human bodies are the best kindling of all.
Not sure what Looney Tunes you were watching.
You don't remember those episodes where Bugs Bunny would turn to the camera and say, "You should set fire to your house, Quinn. Fire to everything."
And then he ate a carrot.
Yeah. and then he did an impression of Charles Bronson or some shit. Some shit I never understood as a kid.
It was very understandable when it was in the 40s, you know.
Yeah, you have to understand. Back then, Charles Bronson reference would fucking kill. The kids would be losing their fucking shit over it.
Haruyu and Nishida are there along with Taiki because, of course, they're the doubles representatives for their school. Also, it looks like Kyo is there, but it's not Kyo, I don't think, unless he's there just in civilian mode.
I think he's there in civilian mode. Like, probably a bunch of them were just coming, like, because at this point, like, people are getting seats and stuff like that. So I think he is probably just there for the team.
Okay. Taiki spots Yusa, and Haruyu points out to him, is like, yeah, you guys are in different blocks, so you're not going to face him unless you get to the finals.
Do you think he's going to get to the finals, Nick?
Seems like it's a big setup for that, doesn't it?
No, there's not a chance in the world he's making it to finals. There's not. I think he's going to get knocked off by a new rival that they're going to kind of introduce in like the second or third round. He'll get a win, I think, but I don't think he's going far.
We'll see.
No, Nick, free pizza bet right now.
Nope.
Damn.
Nope.
All right, well, what if I just I slowly inch my hand closer to the screen?
As Quinn's camera just goes...
Yeah, just smashes, falls over. I'm like, that's a yes. that means you're shocked.
I can't see you anymore, which means I can assume you're holding your hand out too.
Yeah. Done and done.
Taiki looks out over the arena that they're in and thinks to himself, even though this competition is a big deal, it also serves as the kickoff to the upcoming year, which could serve some credence to your point there. Mm-hmm. Haruyu, says like, "Hey, Nishida, calm the hell down. Let's let it all out." And Nishida's like, "You mean let it out like poop?" And he's, "Shut up. You've spoiled my cool line. Shut up. Shut up." And then Taiki's parents show up.
Aww.
His mother is very, very nervous because she wants her boy to do well. But Taiki's father is like, "Why are you nervous?" And she says, "Well, if I'm feeling nervous, maybe I can soak up some of Taiki's nerves too." It's all very sweet.
It's adorable, but I'm going to tell you, ma'am, that's not how it works.
It's not. No.
I've tried it for years, and it turns out I'm actually just very anxious. Like, I just have a problem.
Taiki spots his parents and says, "Oh, hey, your seats are over here." Yukiko, his mother, is really nervous, and because she's like, "Shouldn't you be like practicing down there and stuff?" And he says, "No, my allotted practice time is over. It's okay." And then she starts fussing over him. It's like, "You've got to loops, Fred, and your shirt's wrinkled." And she's just takes a bit to tidy his appearance up a little bit, and then she says, "Good luck. Remember all the days that brought you this far." And that gives her a smile and says, "I will." And then we cut back to the beginning of the chapter, to that alarm being silenced, as Yukiko gets up out of bed, and her husband, is like, "Well, you're getting up already," and she apologizes and says, but he says, "Oh, thanks for always getting up early and packing the lunches." And she says, "Yeah, sometimes I can barely keep my eyes open, but I'm doing this for Taiki."
Oh, good reminder.
And this is. Yeah, I mean, like, we've never really gotten a lot of focus on Taiki's parents. Yukiko is, she's been a constant presence whenever they're in the house, and yes, it's been established multiple times that she puts the lunches together. She's always there when Taiki goes on his morning run and everything. But it's nice to have that drawn into focus of, yeah, she's been, putting in that effort too because she wants to support her son because she loves him. And it's just very nice.
It's very cute. I don't know if this is supposed to give like a context to this tournament or anything like that, or if this is just a chapter to remind us like, hey, your parents probably worked very hard. Maybe not everybody. Some of us have shitty parents, but like a lot of times parents do work very hard to like help support you and to guide you to your future. So, like it's a chapter to be like, hey, like Taiki's mom does a really, tough job, wakes up very early, as early as her kid does, and does it all for him. So that's nice. It's a nice little sentiment.
Yeah. And speaking of sweet gestures of affection,
that cannot be the transition to the cum chapter. You cannot do this.
The chapter title says "Kiss, Love, Another Thing." Quinn, come on.
Well, the kerning is a little difficult here, so it looks like "Kiss, Love, Spam" on my screen.
Yeah, kiss, love, spam. So,
yeah, this chapter is set in Hawaii, where spam is a delicacy.
Chapter 168 of Chainsaw Man. All right, so Yoru was touching Denji's bits while they made out until he did what comes naturally in that kind of situation. And so she's grossed out over the stuff that's on her hand, and goes and like wipes it in some of like the rain that puddles that's in the alley and stuff. And she's like, and I love how she says, "Don't misunderstand. I only kissed you because it felt good." And Denji, with his post-nut clarity, let's be real, says like, "But why did you kiss? I only kissed you because it felt good." So he stares at her blankly for a second, and she immediately just kind of like loses it, stares at his lips, and then bends down and kisses him again. So Denji says, like, "What do you like me?" And Yoru says, "I don't like you. Only the other me likes you, and her feelings flowed into me." And Denji's face at this point is like he's just constantly like being told that like the earth is round and stuff.
This poor boy has had the most earth-shattering like 20 seconds. Like he had his first orgasm at the hand of somebody else, then was told, "No, I don't like you. In fact, I despise you," and then told, "But I know someone else who does like you." Essentially, like he's just constantly getting whiplashed here.
This is such a great pickup line. It's like, "I don't like you. Only the other me likes you, and her feelings flowed into me."
Yeah, I'm gonna try to start using that anytime I'm looking to set up or resolve a crush. I'm like, look, just to be clear, I don't like you, but the other me inside of me likes you, and her thoughts are feeding into mine. Done and done.
Anyway, Yoru walks off and says, like, "Let's eat some sushi so that you can fight me."
Yeah.
Denji is left alone with his thoughts in the alley for a little bit, and he just kind of like slumps down after Yoru walks off. And of course, as Yoru walks away and she's out of sight, the image of Asa, catches up with her and takes over part of Yoru's body to slam her head into the wall. He's like, Asa, stop it, you idiot! And Asa takes over for a second to go, "Why'd you kiss him?"
Yeah.
And Yoru
also,
says,
I like that. Well, that's what she is angry about, and not the other stuff. Like, not
the other thing, not brought up at all.
Yeah, I was like, bravo for her for not being like, "I can't believe you gave him a hand job." Like, what are we doing?
It wasn't a hand job. I just kind of held it. So Yoru's like, "Look, I just remembered we had kissed him before, and I was just confirming my suspicions. It felt good, didn't it?" And she's kind of like allowed to get away from the wall for a second. And then Asa balls up the fist and punches her in the face. And I love that the way that this goes, the fact that Asa is taking over part of her mind to beat up Yoru because she's mad at her is not nearly as funny as Yoru looking at her own fist and going, don't you dare, before it punches her in the head. So she's like, I thought you liked Chainsaw Man. Shouldn't you be happy? And look, it's not wrong. It's not good to say this, but the exact wording of it is also very funny to me because Asa says, he'll think I'm a slut now, you slut. Just, again, Asa, calm down. But Asa fully takes over the body at that point, slumps against the wall, and is just like having a lot of complicated, horny teenager feelings until she says, I'm too hungry for this. And so everyone gets on the train together. Denji, 1,000-yard stare still.
What I love is the unspoken comedy of this scene, which is like, obviously you're like, oh, these two characters who are involved like are having like these 1,000-yard stares. What has everyone else been told of what just happened? Like, again, how deep was that alleyway? Like, it does seem like it was deep enough they didn't see it. But, like, the idea that these two left and they're like, well, I don't see any blood on his pants, so I guess they didn't cut his dick off. But what happened in there, basically?
Why does Asa have a black eye?
Like, why does her hand smell salty for some reason? Like, I really just want the comedy of someone being like, so what happened?
Or like everyone except Samurai knows what's happened.
Yeah, everyone else has figured it out. He's just like, why is your hand kind of sticky?
And we see what appears to be the next destination for our heroes. Sushishi, Death by Sushi, which is apparently prospering because that sushi conveyor belt is going. Like, it is, there are cars parked out front. The building is in pristine condition. So they're doing great.
Yeah,
I guess.
Well, we talked about all the other sushi restaurants that have closed, so all the business is moving to Sushishi.
It makes sense. Yeah, you're right.
That works.
What a weird chapter.
I kind of adore it because it's just so out there, and I love the awkward kind of, like, not cringe comedy, but just how uncomfortable those, like, last 2 pages are, where, like, there's just no dialogue. Denji and Asa have these 1,000-yard stares. No one else is saying anything. Like, I don't know,
one's talking.
It's just very funny. Like, after the last time we saw them all on the train, and they were just like, we're gonna get you laid, Denji. Everyone was fucking gabbing and having a great time, and now it's just dead awkward silence.
And it was awkward for everyone.
Yeah.
But
speaking of things that are awkward for everyone, Nick.
Yes.
War.
It never changes.
But what is it good for?
Mission 99. We're going to hit chapter 100 of Spy Family in this flashback. That's a little bit crazy.
It's better to hit it in this flashback, I think, than like a random chapter where like Anya's like, I made a poopsicle today.
It's just kind of, wild to me that like it seems like we're going to hit chapter 100 and it's going to have nothing to do with Lloyd or Yor or Anya.
That's very true.
Yeah. Seemingly. We are moving a bit forward in the timeline, though, so maybe. So last time the freaking graduation dance was going on, and suddenly a bomb alarm went off. So everyone rushes to the shelter, and Henry is trying to direct people because he, of course, is part of the staff. Everything, it turns out, it was just a false alarm, though. So it's like, the enemy plane actually turned back. So everything's good. And so everyone's like complaining, it's like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And one of the teachers says, like, you should feel lucky that this was a false alarm. Can you imagine if the enemy actually like got a foothold in our capital? That would be disaster for us. Fair enough. But someone's like, we should just like call an end to the graduation party. Just threw it for an abundance of caution. Of course, people are like, oh, come on. And Martha, who was going to confess her feelings to Henry before they get interrupted. Is kind of struck by this. Henry goes to her to check that she's okay. And he says, "Oh, was there something you were going to tell me?" And she hesitates and then says, "It was nothing important. I just wanted to get some well wishes from you." It's like, fucking, we know this is how it goes. We knew going in this is how it was going to go, but still sucks.
Yeah.
Martha narrates, "Never have I hated my own wavering courage so much as I did in that moment." And yeah, they just exchange pleasantries. Martha gets back to her room and cries because she couldn't fucking tell him. Then I guess like her mother, I think, she says like, "Oh, here, yeah, your uncle sent a letter from the battlefield to you," and so she's like, "Oh, that's it. I'll write a letter." But she starts off with "my beloved Henry," and immediately is like, "I can't start with my beloved. No, it's not going to work." So instead, she gets to much more like casual, but she says straight up like, "Oh, on the 20th, I'm going to leave on the 8 a.m. train from this station," and she is a military recruit. Her letters get fucking read because this happens.
This was so painful.
So someone redacts the hell out of her letter. She can't give any details about where she's departing from. So then Martha's fucking waiting for Henry to show up at the station to see her off, and he just doesn't show up.
Yeah. It's, oh God, that hurts.
There's
There's a particular kind of hell, which is watching like a romantic comedy where the romantic gesture gets fucked up or something like that. And you're just like, I hate this. I cannot stand this. I think this is the worst thing in the world.
So Henry does eventually get a letter from Martha that is not super redacted because she keeps it vague in terms of all the details. And she's like, "Yeah, apparently I wasn't supposed to put all those details in it. My commanding officer was so pissed at me." But she says, like keeps it casual and stuff. And she's like, "Hey, I'm going to continue to write letters so you don't grow lonely." Aw, yeah. So sweet. Henry writes a letter back. And when Martha gets it, it says, "Oh, I hope this letter finds you in good health. Whatever your situation is, important you follow the rules, for adherence to policy is in many ways the measure." It's like, it's just a fucking lecture.
I love it though, because she's like still kind of excited for it. Like she keeps up the correspondence, but she is just like, "I thought he was gonna write something romantic."
Yeah, they're still keeping in contact with each other as he continues to teach. She continues in her non-combat military duties, and she, there's some little bits here and there where she's like, "Oh, I got praise for my performance the other day. I wonder if they'll give out star medals and I could become an imperial soldier." Get it? It's like, that's cute. But things get worse, of course, in the war. We know how horribly bad it gets. And the letters start to come and go less frequently. And I like how we see Henry, the way that this impacts him, because he's like, "Oh, there's no letters? I see."
Yeah. He's, oh, God. Yeah. It's just him being like, "I need letters?" Like, "Nope, haven't gotten any for a month." I see. Like, no.
Yeah. At this point, my desire to hear from her had become a yearning. And at one point, Henry overhears some military guys discussing, is like, "Oh, the girls have been given combat training, have they not? We just need to buy time for the 6th Brigade to withdraw. If we message this properly, it could help boost morale. Yes, let's run it by command." And shortly afterward, Martha's unit here is like, "Oh, yes, we're asking for volunteers to form a women's fighting squad, a combat squadron, and you would be sent to the front." And afterwards, all of the recruits are discussing it, and they're like, "What the hell? This is crazy. We have not had serious combat training. No, I don't want to do this." But one of them says, like, "Look, that was a cheap threat." Like they're saying like, "Oh, if you don't volunteer, we can't guarantee your family's safety." They're just trying to like, just force us into it, just strong arm us into quote unquote volunteering with all this. Um, and so they're like, what if all of us refuse and stuff? But Martha speaks up and says, I'm going to fight. If we're dead either way, then if I could kill at least one enemy, stop just one bullet that would be fired towards home. And that's how propaganda works, kids. So, you know, a news gets around about it, about the special women's military unit. Martha and some other recruits are posing for a picture.
She's front
and Henry
center.
gets the news. She is right there. She is part of the face of this. And of course, he is horribly affected by this. And then something very interesting happens. Henry is interrupted from reading this because he's called over to proctor the debate competition for some of his students. The topic of the debate is, can we ever free ourselves of war? Arguing the opposing position, as in, no, we cannot, is Donovan Desmond.
This was
young student Donovan Desmond.
This was a surprise, which makes sense. Like, it was like, yeah, of course you would kind of use this as an opportunity to explore this character a little bit more.
And Donovan says, we will never be free of war. History is proof of that. But what if we purged all weapons from the world? Well, no. Because human beings are simply liars. We'd ask, well, what if other nations have kept weapons in secret? And as long as that doubt persists, history would be doomed to repeat itself. We can never know the true intentions of others because we ourselves are hiding our true intentions. Of course, I desire peace as much as anyone. I know that solving differences with dialogue instead of weapons is ideal. But warring like this is the best we are capable of. Even if there were resources left over, even if there were governmental reform or technological innovation, I can't imagine an end to war. This is the guy in charge of the country. Like, so that's a bad thing, I think. He feels that way.
God, this next part's so painful.
Yeah, Henry at this point is like, he's kind of like not really paying attention because he's got much bigger concerns on his mind. He gets a letter from Martha that says, I've not been very well lately. I haven't been eating, and I keep having the same bad dream that you're teaching at school. All the students are holding hands in a circle around you, but I'm crying because my hands are filthy and I can't join everyone. Henry, I think I made a mistake. I'm sorry I was such a poor student. I was the one who was a fool. I'm so sorry. And Henry is like just holding the paper and he's like, that's not true. It's not true. It's not true. Henry, I wish I could see you. Ah! So Henry reacts to this by like, he tries to just hold the emotions back, but I could not. The only words I could utter were, I wish I could see you too. And it's like, I wanted to protect her, but by the time I recognized those feelings, it was too late. For that was the last letter I ever received from Martha. And he writes a letter to her, and it begins, my beloved Martha, the way that she couldn't address it to him.
I hate this. Actively hate this.
He brings it back around to kind of like, his lecture style, like, I'm worried about you. It is essential that you eat properly. I do not know if it will bring you any comfort, but I have wiped this letter with the tea leaves you loved so much. I can only pray that their aroma endures upon the battlefield. For my part, I have been fervently practicing at dance so that when you can return, we can continue our dance from the graduation party.
Oh my god. Nick, this entire chapter is The Simpsons. Like, stop, he's already dead. Like, it's just, I'm already heartbroken. You don't need to keep doing this to me. I'm so fragile.
And although he's keeping his composure while he's writing this, mentally he's just saying over and over and over, come back, come back, come back, come back, come back. He goes to mail the letter, but as he is stopping to deliver it, the story comes over the radio that the women's combat unit died. All of them were killed in a military victory for them. Yeah. We cut from there to the students of the academy being addressed by some sort of military commander who says, like, you are all the future of this nation. I hope you all develop a love of your country and the spirit to defend it. There is much that you can learn from the courage of the women who died valiantly. And Henry goes, shut up! Just screams it. And someone's like, hey, what the hell? Stop it. Stop it. And he's like, you're using their deaths as propaganda. You made sacrifices of them. You sacrificed their lives for this ridiculous war. And of course, the general immediately is just like, drag him out of here. And he gets beaten up and dragged away.
It's brutal. You don't have to see it like up close, but you do just see one of the guards hitting him with the baton. It is like
in the face.
Yeah, it's fucking awful.
Henry is thrown in a cell, and his father comes to see him. And he says, like, well, you've done a fine job sullying the Henderson name. Think this through. You either change your attitude and come out of that cage, or you'll never be allowed in a classroom again. Henry narrates, is refusing to bend what true strength is. Nay, the future that's 10 years, no, 100 years hence, that matters more than my paltry pride. And he remembers Martha's, what he thought were last words to him, which was, you're teaching at school and all the students are holding hands in a circle around you, and he realizes he has work to do.
Yeah.
And he can't do it if he just lets his grief and anguish consume him. So he goes back to the class and does what his father says. Donovan comes to talk with him later on, and he says, like, we barely progressed while you were in jail, Mr. Anderson. But, and he says, you know, excuse me for saying so, but you're a fool. And one shouldn't expect anything of those who in their foolishness have disappointed you once already.
And he's not saying this, like, in, like, a cruel bully way. Like, he is saying all of this very matter-of-factly. Yeah.
So, again, when you consider, like, this guy has children. So, this is his way he thinks about everyone. How bad of a dad must he be, Jesus?
I mean, remember that Anya read his mind once, and it was all, like, just noise, essentially. Or silence. I can't remember which one was which. Because the brother, I think, was the one that was noise. And then I think the dad was silence. But yeah, like, things are starting to come together.
Henry says in response, well, that's a preposterous way to live, don't you think? If we gave up on everyone and everything so quickly, that would be the end of human history. And I, for one, would be out of a job. That's a nice little joke. And Donovan says something bizarrely kind, which is, oh, I wouldn't want that. I always enjoy your lectures, Mr. Henderson.
Yeah.
Interesting. So time passes, of course. Henry's narration says, like, yeah, before long, the streets of Berlin were full of demobilized soldiers, but the one I'd been waiting for was not among them. And his father addresses him again and says, hey, thanks to your outburst, all your previous suitors have withdrawn. But I managed to get a new one lined up for you. This is your final chance. You don't have the right to refuse this. And so Henry gets married. We do not see who his bride is, like, at all.
Yeah, we don't.
No indication of that. And of course, we find out somewhere near the border, Martha has survived. And she is up in bed in someone's house somewhere with bandages, like, covering her jaw and her hand. So the story, of course, is not yet over because we're not caught up yet. God, this is fucking heartbreaking, though. Just
this is one of the most painful chapters of a manga I've ever had to read.
It's not just for the relationship between Martha and Henry in terms of, like, romantic interest and stuff. That's, you know, it's like, oh, what could have been if this hadn't happened and stuff. But, like, the suffering that they are both going through during this, their ideals being broken down because of this pointless conflict, the regrets that they have, the fact that their environments are getting worse and worse through time. It's
They're both
very,
suffering
very
as a result of everything. Yeah. It's brutal. Like we walked into this knowing they don't get together and that there's going to have to be some inevitable harshness to this story. But it has been such an effective way of, one, telling us like a tragic romance that we then get to hopefully sort of see the other side of. Like, we're going to hopefully cut to, and we're going to watch Henderson and her fucking dance, and it's going to be very cute. But, you know, we're looking at that. And then also just like adding so much detail to these characters. Like, there was already a lot. Like, we already kind of liked Henderson. But I feel like this chapter is doing so much to really hammer home what Henderson really is about and why him teaching these students is so important.
Absolutely.
So, I really, really love what this chapter has done with these two characters, this whole little flashback. But yeah, this has been one of the most emotionally devastating chapters to read of a manga.
Speaking of emotionally devastating, Quinn.
On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, a new chapter of Eden Zero came out. So let's talk about it. This is chapter 291, My Role. I think they finished Arigato in the cover pages.
Yep.
God, please let it be the next chapter, like 2 chapters. End this shit. Shiki dashes towards chronophage Rebecca and starts using the gravity to like force the chronophage out of her, and Shiki's just apologizing because he's like, I'm supposed to be your friend.
How does that work? It's magic. Sorry, it's ether gear.
Yeah, it's the gravity behind her. He puts that. Nick, remember he pulled memories, so like you can kind of make anything gravity if you want.
You can do anything. Yeah. Yes.
He's like, look, I couldn't figure it out, but I want to help you remember all your friends and all the adventures that we went on. We get a big 2-page spread of Rebecca throughout the series. I think it's supposed to be deeply emotional, but most of these images suck. Like, it's notable that one of the first things you see is her getting tortured by Rebecca in a scene. I'm like, I don't think that's what she'd want to remember.
There's a lot of sexy images in the flashback to have the big emotional, oh yes, remember all the times you had together, Rebecca, with this crew. But when you think about it, it really is just like, look, you might as well just acknowledge the history of this series, which, what was the most of what Rebecca did? Get put in weird, sexy pinup situations.
Yeah.
Like, there's the bit where she, escaped with all the other beekeepers by, forming a pyramid of naked women. There's the time that she was in the bath. The other time she was in the bath. The time that she was, thought that all of her friends were dead and gone forever, and then she used her cat Leaper in order to escape to a parallel universe. But she was naked in the shower when that happened.
She was. Like, her connecting with Lobelia, which of course happened when they were both in bikinis. Yeah, it's all that sort of stuff. And then,
they're right team compared to everything else.
Yeah, honestly, really, honestly classy. They should be hanging that shot up in the Louvre. And she's like, and then, she smiles. It says, Rebecca. And there's another 2-page spread of the chronophage starting to leave her body and evaporate. And they're like, is it over? And Rebecca's like, wait, where are my clothes? Why are we floating in the middle of space? And Shiki's like, let's go home. And she's like, didn't answer either of my questions, but I guess whatever. Then we just get a silent chapter. I guess this is like an aesthetic decision that I guess Hiro decided to do, but there is no dialogue, basically. Ziggy's on a ship. So
I hope the song that plays during the anime adaptation of this scene is terrible.
You think this is getting? Do you think the Eden Zero anime is lasting long enough to get to this part of the adaptation?
No, but I also am not discounting it.
True. When someone makes an AMV using these panels, I hope the song they pick sucks ass. Yes.
It will.
Ziggy's there, so the shining stars are running up to greet him. Rebecca and Shiki hold hands. So there you go. Weiss and Homura just smile. I don't know if it's because they saw that the two of them are holding hands or what. I don't know. But all this is happening. One person is looking on. It's Pino who's like, "Oh, you all make me so happy, and that makes me happy. I'm really glad I meet all of you, but I'm dead now. Goodbye," and dies.
That just a very sudden, like, oh, the dramatic beat.
Yeah, and then she just plops down and deactivates. Now look, I'm not a fool. I've read this
No,
series. Pino's coming back. She's getting a human body.
she's gonna be human. Yeah.
That's been set up from the very fucking beginning of the series. I
But
I am so tired of reading this manga. This is one of the most underwhelming conclusions. I guess it's fine. Like, there's probably worse endings to a manga of this kind before, where like it's just bad. Like everything in it is like actively the bad decision. Everything here is just boring. It's just really boring. It's like first draft level kind of like nothing. Like, oh, how will I have emotion to all of my characters meeting each other in this moment? I'll have none of them talk. So you can imagine a beautiful song playing. You're like, yeah, I would have probably taken that one to the whiteboard another time and tried to think of something more interesting to do there or something like that. Or how can I have this scene with Rebecca and Shiki come to a conclusion? Like, well, what if he just pulls some of the chronophage out of her with gravity and then tells her to remember? And she does. Like, yeah, sure. But you probably should have done something cooler, like, with all that.
there's a thing that I see occasionally whenever it looks like, a popular, uh, sizably long-running shonen manga is coming to a conclusion. Is that people go like, "Oh, but what about all the loose ends that we have to tie up? We can't end it now. Like, what if this thing happens?" Like, it's like something that happened that you would see with Bleach, where it's
Yeah.
like there's so much stuff that that has been like hinted at in terms of like the history of the Gote 13, or like the stuff with Ukitake and all, or oh, the mystery of like, imagine if like the series had ended earlier and you wouldn't have found out that the about the whole thing about who Yachiru was, that Kenpachi had named his Yachiru after and stuff, blah blah blah. So whenever people talk like that, what they're saying is, I want these things to be portrayed in the manga in a way that is emotionally satisfying. Not that you go, oh, we got to do this, this, and this before we finish. Okay, all right. So yeah, solve the mystery of the Rebecca in the future. Done that. Gotta get rid of the chronophage. All right, done that. Oh, Pino wants to be human. Okay, let's do that. Just
Yeah. Knock them
you're
off.
not supposed to just run through them like this. This is, like you said, yeah, it feels very first draft, just paint by numbers, just got to get it done. And I don't know if that is because Hero's just like, look, I'm just done with this. I'm just going to get it over with. Or if it legitimately is just like he thinks that this is better than we think it is.
I don't want to presume, because like I do, like, for the couple Zero people that I occasionally run into, they do seem to enjoy this. I think there's just like a standard there, or I don't want to say taste. That sounds condescending, but like there's just something where like for those people, this is exactly what they want. They got their 2-page spread of Rebecca and Shiki hugging in space, and they're like, "Wow, masterpiece!" And you look at it and you're like,
wow, we managed to get like 50 shots of Rebecca's ass in this one
yeah.
this one moment.
I don't even think they're thinking of it that way. I do think they're like the shot of Rebecca and Shiki hugging in space for them is like this deeply emotional moment. But I think, like, for us, we're looking at this and we're like, well, we've read better stuff, so we don't. It doesn't work that same way. Like, I'm watching One Piece drop fucking giant bombs every week and stuff like that, and see the Spy Family just have this deep emotional chapter of two characters like separated by war, and you're like, I've never felt so emotionally moved by a chapter before. And then I read Zero, and I'm like, yep, if I typed into an AI generator, fucking make me a shonen manga, emotional ending in space, lovers go, like, I'm sure there would be like 2-page spread, the characters hug in space or whatever.
All right, we're gonna move on now to Astro Royale.
A series everybody is high on right now.
Chapter 8, Haunted House. Hey, it's a color page, because, it's 8 chapters in. This tends to be where Jump series get another color page. It's a very neat looking one because, it's a haunted house that they're going into and stuff. And so, we see Hibaru and his current 2 teammates and, a transparent figure in the background. What could that be? So Hibaru and the others are they've come to a new region. And they're just kind of talking about how, like, hey, since the meteor fell, like, there's been a bunch of areas that are having a hard time and stuff. A cop comes running up, named Genki, and he's like, "Oh, I'm in big trouble." And they're like, "Oh, what looters?" I was like, "How do you know that they're looters and not survivors?" So, Genki says, like, "Oh yeah, there's all of these reports of looters and burglary going on, and the worst of them is a team of burglars who are all using Astros called the Ghost Thieves." And he used his flashlight to make to give himself the spooky face. It's like, all right, that's kind of cute. That's all right. And like, what ghost? It's like, oh yes, a security guard said he saw a ghost, and we managed to find their hideout, but it's an abandoned mansion in West Asakusa that's said to be haunted. So we as cops can't go in there because that's too much for us. He says, I tried to go in myself, but I had to run away because of certain reasons. Okay. So yeah, they're like, all right, I guess we'll help out. Kuran says, like, yeah, we'll do it. And Hibaru and Tarasu are like, what? He's like, yeah, don't we help people in need? Yeah, like, what are you guys talking about? Like, what are you saying?
It's such a curious thing because, like, Hibaru and other guy have been characterized as, like, very, like, gung-ho everything. So the idea that they're, like, scared by ghosts is, like, a new element. It's, like, something we're learning about this chapter, that they have, like, that kind of flaw. So when Ko is just like, don't we help people? Like, let's go help or whatever. And they're like, it's just a strange, like, tonal thing that you're just like, I didn't expect this from our heroes, and there's probably a better way to, like, execute on this concept or whatever. But hey, I mean, it's an element of character development for Hibaru, and other character will one day be very important, I assume.
He's the deuteragonist.
Sure he is, Nick. Name something he's done.
He had a fight with Hibaru and he used the shield thing.
No, but he was an antagonist in that situation then.
You're technically right. All right. So they find the mansion hideout place, and there's, like, bats and stuff going around it. And Karan is just like, all right, let's go in. Just very light, cool. Just like, let's just go. He's just no-selling it, and Hibaru and Tarasu are like, but then Genki the cop says, wait, guys, there's one more thing. The thief stole my gun. All right.
This sounds
Is there anything else you want us to know that you fucked up about this situation?
I know, like, once they get inside, he just gives them a call. He's like, hey, I should have mentioned this before. I was kind of nervous if you guys would be angry at me. I kind of lost the keys to a tank. And I think they found it, and they found the tank, and they have the tank right now. Also, they cloned a dinosaur. Okay, but I think that's everything off my chest. Good luck, click.
Just get like a Morse code message from him later. By the way, when I was calling you to get help, I said your social security numbers out loud, and they overheard me.
Running through the house, paper airplane goes in through the window, and he's just like, sorry, I was smoking and threw the cigarette out, and I think I lit the house on fire.
Oh, man. Oh, God. So, yeah, he says...
taping up signs on the windows. Sorry, I poured sugar in your gas tank. I thought that was where I was supposed to go.
Oh, God. Well, do you at least have sugar for us? Like, no.
I've got gassy sugar. Would you like that?
Um, there's a really another weird moment where, like, because Genki's like, I'm the worst cop in the world, and then Hibari goes, I don't get it, but you seem really serious, Gen, so you wait here, because we're not gonna do things by the book. It takes an outlaw to deal with an outlaw. You let us Yakuza take care of it. It's such weird messaging in this series. Like, don't worry, incompetent cops, the Yakuza are here to help you. um, they head in after what I'm now realizing takes a long time for them to just go through the fucking door. They go inside. Oh, it's a spooky mansion. Look at this. It's fucking Super Mario 64 World 5 up in here. And there's candles and suits of armor.
Yeah.
What?
I was doing the Luigi's Mansion theme.
Oh, gotcha. So Hibaru and Terasu are scared of the suits of armor and the candles. Oh, and also the flower smell, I guess. Anyway, Karan's just going up the stairs, going, "Hey, get out of here!" So it's a nice contrast. I appreciate that.
Sure, I do legitimately always enjoy when you can have a group and you can clearly and firmly establish that these characters have different personalities from each other. I've dunked on Hero for this constantly. They'll have like 7 characters in the scene, and all of them will react the exact same way to everything.
Yeah, unless there's a bug in the scene, and then Shiki will go, "Oh right, I'm afraid of those."
Oh right, yeah, something like that.
So they go down the hall. Something goopy, however, suddenly falls from the ceiling and hits Terasu's shoulder. And he and Hibaru stop and they're like, "Oh, what is it?" And they look up and there's a giant ghostly face that's like drooling and on them. And another one comes down and Karan looks up, goes, "Huh?" And it like eats him, I guess. Hibaru freaks out, grabs Terasu's arm, but he's turned into a zombie. Oh! So he's freaking out, and then an invisible hand grabs him around the wrist, and he freaks out some more.
It's very interesting that Karan gets eaten by this thing, gets bitten, and Hibaru's first action is not to be like, I will.
We gotta save him.
Yeah, we have to say. He's like, let's get out of here before it happens. It's like, all right.
Oh my god!
I was like, all right, fucking Shaggy, like, fucking, all right, big ass cowards.
The hero of our manga, everyone.
Yeah.
A hand grabs Hibaru and pulls him around the corner, and Hibaru freaks out for a second until a voice says, "It's just me." Shh. And the invisible figure fades in, and it is a young woman, Kinpa, that Hibaru is familiar with. But he freaks out, goes, "Kinpa!" And she's like, "I said to shut up!" And she smacks him across the face. I mean, well-deserved after everything. And we get an introductory box that says, "Ginji's daughter, Hibaru and Terasu's childhood friend, Kinpa Yobana." All right.
Sure.
Good to know.
Sure.
Here she is.
She's relevant now. And we don't get confirmation, but it does seem to be that her Astro is a compacted brush, which is, it's fine. It's girly, but
it makes sense because she turns invisible with it because it's like foundation.
Yeah,
stuff.
But femininity is not something you need to hide from, Nick.
No, it's not. Hibaru continues to freak out. Anyway, he's like, "Oh, they're dead."
I love this face.
Dead. And she's like, "Oh my god, what did you see that freaked you out so much?" And then she just kind of looks over them and she says, "Oh yeah, Terasu's just asleep. He's just kind of passed out. Oh, and it looks like Karan's asleep too. Well, he's kind of like hardened, but he's still alive." And Hibaru is still freaking out. It's like, "Oh my god, the monster's gonna eat you," because she has just gone over to like the puddle of drool ectoplasm where Karan disappeared, got eaten. And she says, "God, just shut up. Look, just carry that zombie and carry the drool. We're going to just temporarily retreat and regather ourselves." And he's like, "What is happening?" And she's like, "Look, it's fine. Just come on.
Let's go."
So they rush off. As they rush off, the shield medallion that Terasu was carrying falls to the ground, and a figure picks it up and says, "A girl was here." Yep. Okay. So odd transitions. There are little bits here and there that I do like about this chapter. Like I like Karan just like not giving a fuck about the haunted mansion and all of its weirdness. And I think I like the way that Kinpa is drawn, where it kind of looks like she's invisible even when she's visible in some regards. It is kind of weird to see Hibaro just be characterized sort of all over the place.
I don't even,
as we go through this.
I don't even think it was necessarily that bad. Like I like the idea that we're giving him some level of characterization. It's good for characters to have flaws. Like characters should have things they're not good at, or maybe they're cowards or easily spooked or something. I think that's fine. I think it's weird when his friend gets chomped for his reaction not to be, well, I'm going to help my friend. It's to be like, let's get out of here. I'm like, that's just a strange, like, thing to do. And then, no, I guess that's the big thing. I guess that's really where it comes down to. It's a weird move for him to do that. Because there's a way where he could have been like, okay, time for me to go punch this thing, even though I'm scared. And that's when the ghost girl steps in and is like, if you punch that thing, you're going to cause a giant fucking mess. Like, you're already making too much noise. So, like, you know, that, like, it didn't need to be like that.
There's a bug around here.
Okay. I thought you were just dancing. We were doing the Nick dance.
Oh, God. Okay. Well, we'll have Astro Royale a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
But today we say goodbye to
Eden Zero.
That's not today.
Damn. Well, at least it's a series I love, though, right?
Define love.
Certainly, it's not the only sports manga we really get to talk about in this magazine, besides Blue Box, like 1/8 of the time.
So it's the final chapter of Green Greens. All right, final chapter. Those who are green,
like Gamora and the Great Gazoo and the Jolly Green Giant. They all make cameos in this chapter, right?
What a wild goddamn final chapter.
They're all waving to Haku as he makes his big swing. He's like, all my friends are here.
As it turns out, Green Greens spelling out GGG is actually just to get Gamora, Grinch, Green Giant in there.
Yep.
It is raining at the driving range, and some people are talking about like, where the hell are Oka and Yasaki? And they're like, oh, they apparently went to go look at clubs together. And Shikara goes, what? Because he's not happy about that. And yes, it is raining as Oga and Yasaki make their way to look at clubs, and so they get there, and there's kind of like some just playful dialogue between them for a second. Like Yasaki's like, maybe it's better if we don't do this, and Oga says, nah, I've been looking forward to this. What, you've been looking forward to going out with me? Is that what you think? Because it's no. Just, so Oga has a club that she is really excited about, and she's like, yeah, I can't use my clubs at the moment, so I'm getting all their grips replaced. And she's just, kind of like fiddles around with it. She's like, I really want to take a shot right now. But then they go to take a look at Yasaki's options. He takes some practice swings, but he's still having trouble. Like, oh, this keeps on slicing on me too. Oga takes a look at, like the measurement of like how hard and far the shot would travel on a regular range. And she gets a thought. She holds out a club and says, yeah, use this one. We cut to later. Haku has bought the club, and so he says, why did you say, why were you so sure it would be this one? Because it really was perfect for me. I knew right away. And Oga just plays it off like, who knows? So they set off. Haku says, oh man, I really gotta go use it. So Oga says, well, let's take it to the range. I should probably leave my stuff there anyway. Haku is carrying his club and her clubs as well under his umbrella. So he's kind of struggling with it. So she's like, "All right, here, I'll carry my stuff." And he says, "No, you're still hurt. I will carry this for me. It'll be really difficult for you to like hold the umbrella and hold your stuff too. So don't worry about that." So they kind of argue for a little bit, and Oga's like, "Okay, well, how about this?" And she holds her umbrella over the both of them so that it protects the stuff, and it's getting her shoulder wet because of course umbrellas aren't meant to cover people like that. And Haku points that out, and she says, "It's fine. It'll be half and half wet, half dry, since my pain and frustration were also halved." So it's it's like it's nice. They're companions. They make each other's burdens lighter. Yeah. Isn't that sweet? They get to the driving range. Haku unpacks his driver.
I love this motherfucking dude just holds this shit out like it's a fucking Buster sword.
So he's like, "Oh my god, it's so cool! I'm gonna hit it. I'm gonna hit with it." So he gets set. He's getting set to hit a shot. And he's like, I might scratch the club." So Oga points out, like, "What are you gonna display it, or are you gonna use it like a club? Come on, like." You've hit so many drives before. That club's going to pay out the effort you've put in. So Haku gets set, but the other people who work at the range start to gather around. They're like, "Oh, hey, you got a brand new club. Awesome. Yeah." And Haku's like, "Oh, Oga picked it out for me." And Chikara goes, "What?" So Oga is asked, like, "Hey, you recommended a club that's like for pretty advanced players. Why'd you do that?" And Oga explains, "Isaki's swing is based on mine, so his approach and his mistakes are similar to mine. I recommended the club that I would pick if I could hit a ball 300 yards. I'm not strong enough to use it, but if he can find his own ideal, I'm sure that club will become his unique weapon and his alone." And Haku is getting set with the club. He's thinking to himself, "Man, I can try that. Maybe I can try that. There's so much I just want to do." The rain stops, and they're pointing out, like, "Oh, hey, it's nice outside. Summer's coming to an end." And Haku says, "Nah, it's just starting." And he takes a shot as the sun shines down on him and goes up into the sky. Haku narrates, "There's always someone better. Hard work doesn't always pay off. There will be tough times and plenty of times when things don't work out. But it's okay to fail. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll challenge myself and get hurt. That's how you grow, one step at a time. Right now, we're starting to become adults." And that's the end of the series, as we get that kind of very encouraging, seemingly self-reflective message from the series. Yeah. Because, what I took from this afterwards was like, it sort of feels like a reassurance almost that Kento Terasaka is sharing with people, like, hey, things didn't work out this time. The series is already over. But it's okay to try and fail and keep on going and learn from your mistakes.
I think there was something extremely impressive about this series in how sort of earnestly good it was. And it is very frustrating that it didn't catch on. Part of it is probably the same reason we were a little apprehensive at the start, which is like a golf manga.
Golf. Yeah.
But like even they had like an author's comment that's just like, "Look, golf is a fun game. You should probably give it a try sometime." Like it does seem to be a genuine interest of theirs. It's not like, "Oh, I need another sports manga. There's too many baseball ones, and there's been a volleyball one too recently, so I guess I'll do golf," or something like that. It didn't feel like this wasn't something that was done because of a genuine interest in this sport. And this manga was extremely good. It's a little bit of a bummer because we end here without really we don't get one of those chapters that flashes us forward at all. So part of me is curious because remember this manga opened up with Haku at the Masters, and it was like, "Oh, it's coming down to we'll never know who his caddy was, what his relationship with Oga becomes, what happens when he goes to America. It's just a bummer to miss out on those things. But I do genuinely really appreciate that this was a series with so much earnest, like, raw emotion and such a great look at sports and, like, finding passion and making relationships. And it's just, I don't know, everything in it was really good. And I'm just very grateful I got to experience any of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a shame, but I really do hope that there were enough people who saw this and were like, "Hey, that Kento Terasaka makes good manga. We should like give them a chance to like really showcase that."
Yeah.
Um, if this leads to something really great down the line, then fantastic. And honestly, it really did help for me to kind of soften the blow of knowing that we're not going to get any more greens to have that parting message, which has been part of the ethos of the series. Like, hey, it's okay to really, really, really work hard at something if you don't win the big one, because what you put into this will pay off, and it's about doing something for yourself, not for the sake of like, oh, I got the big trophy, I got the big top selling series in Jump. It was, I did this to do something good because I wanted to do something good.
Yeah, it's like in like a meta sense, this chapter's really good. It's not going to end up being my favorite chapter of the week, but it doesn't make it not a great chapter of something and a great series. So even though this wasn't the best series in Jump that got to run for 17 years, and there's a couple movies in theater now about it, this was still a great series. And even if it's only 26 like chapters, this is a series I'm definitely going to be able to recommend to people. Like if somebody's like, hey, I want to read like a good sports manga, be like, check out Green Green Greens, and I think you really like it.
All right, let's go over to Marriagetoxin, Chapter 90. So Ushio has recruited Gero to help her to deal with the Fire Clan, and they are being driven to the Fire Clan's headquarters for Ushio to take the leader's challenge. But the driver stops just outside of Fire Clan territory and says, "Sorry, but everything beyond here is part of their yard. Could you maybe show an old man some mercy? I got a son who dreams of becoming a pastry chef, and I just want to support him. Look, I carry a framed picture of us and put it on the door. Not like a Polaroid or anything. A full-ass framed picture.
This is a full framed photo. I guess I taped to my dashboard to ensure it stays up.
So
there's glass in here. This is actually a real big driving danger.
It's taking up so much of my attention.
It wobbles when I drive. This is actually a very big detriment to my career."
He drops them off and drives
But my son
off.
makes a goddamn great brownie.
He's so great, I hope that I get to see him become a great pastry chef. I hope nothing spoils that. Bye!
You don't know what I really enjoy about his cooking so much? The way he puts things in an oven, and the oven heats them up. Oh, I hope nothing ever ruins my joy for that.
So yeah, the three of them are left there. They look up towards, the headquarters that awaits them, which is at the top of this cliff. It's got like a waterfall pouring down near it. It's the village where the dragon dwells. And they've got to go up a whole ass, mountain path in order to get up there. Kinosaki pretty quickly is just like, "Carry me, Gero," which, yeah, understandable. Also, like, why are you here?
I like how they asked that question. They're like, Kinosaki probably shouldn't be here, right?
But Ushio's like, "Oh, it's better to have one more person around to be sure." Yeah. And Kinosaki is like, "Ooh, she's embarrassed to be alone with Gero." So Gero brings up, some of the history of the Fire Clan, how they are no longer one of the top 5 families, but they're still very powerful. He starts to go into that, but then Kinosaki says like, "Hey, it's fine. If anything happens, you'll be there to protect me, right, Garo-kun? And Garo gets a little bit flustered. Then Kinosaki wants to know some of the backstory. So she says, "Hey, Ushio, how are you related to fire users?" And so she gives her backstory and says, there's a very long history in the Fire Clan with some very deeply established beliefs. The story goes that the very first fire user was granted their power by a dragon, and as payment, every few generations, a child will be born into the clan with burns all over their body, a child of omen. And that child was me. And she says, but what you know is that those weren't burns, they were symptoms of airborne contact dermatitis, because at the beginning of the series, when she was an antagonist, she had to wear the suit that covered her entire body with water because her skin could not be in contact with the air. So she says, yeah, and there's no dragon either. So she says, unfortunately, the residents of the village are still bound to their old beliefs, and the child of Omen must be offered to the dragon, else disaster shall befall their people. But on that occasion, a servant of the Fire Clan noticed something. The child of Omen had a special power. And essentially, she was just sent down the river to, die. And instead, the water, obeyed her whims and was like coiling around her and protecting her. This servant of the family realized it and decided to rescue her and care for her, because she believed that my power over water would someday prove to be of great worth. And so she ran off and raised her in hiding until she fell suddenly ill and died. And it's really upsetting to see Ushio was still in her diving suit when this happened. Yeah. It's like, oh, like you couldn't even like
hug
have
her
like
or anything. Yeah.
Couldn't have physical contact with the person who cared about you. But after that point, the Fire Clan was demoted, and recently they became aware that the child of Omen they sacrificed had actually survived. That's when they sent me the message challenging me to a final bout before the dragon. Essentially, they're like, yeah, so they think that if they kill me, then the dragon who was apparently cursed them and would apparently led to their demotion will grant them their power back. So they're going to try and kill me. So Garo says, like, hey, their fall was not your fault. The Fire Clan is in decline because they were spoiled by their status and they weren't diligent in bettering their techniques. Just a very, like, straightforward, like, they got demoted because they sucked.
Yeah. Just lets you know it's not because of you, they sucked ass.
Ushio goes, you don't have to tell me that. It clearly, like, it has some meaning to her, but she's like, yeah, look, I know. And I only accepted the challenge because I realized that selling the matter sooner rather than later was the right business decision considering the situation. Mm-hmm. Business. Mm-hmm. 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 But she said, I needed you here in case I'm defeated. Because if I do die, I want you to gather my ashes and scatter them into the sea. And so Garo paused for a second and he says, well, I guess that means we've got nothing to do. Because I know how firsthand how skilled you are. No fire user is going to be able to beat you. I guarantee it.
Oh, he's being sweet. Aww.
Yeah. And then he's like, also, why did you trust us with this? And Kinosaki's it's like, oh my god, come on.
Shut up. Clearly she doesn't have many friends.
For Ushio.
It is worth noting, because it's not explicitly brought up here, but this does seem to suggest then that there is no water clan.
Yeah.
That she is like an anomaly of it. And I wonder if this is just like a Fire Clan propaganda thing that they specifically like, we don't ever want there to be a water clan.
Yeah. It seems like there might be a thing where the Fire Clan like suppressed the water clan in some way prior to all this or something like that. But regardless, they arrive, although by the time they do, Kinosaki's just like asleep on Garo's back. They are greeted by Haichi, the daughter of the clan head Haibe Kurokawa, And she's like very polite and is like, "Oh yes, I'm pleased to meet you." She's got like a servant carrying a parasol to protect her from the sun and stuff. And she's like, "Oh, and this must be your husband and his sister." And for whatever reason, Ushio didn't run this part of the backstory by them. It was like, "Oh yeah, the only ones allowed to witness the final bout are family members." So I that's why I told them you were. It doesn't mean anything else, okay?
Yeah, I like that they had this long ass walk up this fucking mountain, and not once did she bring it up. She was just like, nah, it'll be funnier if I if I mentioned it at the top.
I was going to say like, "Oh yeah," and I'm sure you had to say that he was your husband. It couldn't be someone else. And it was like, well, I guess you wouldn't have any other family members.
Yeah.
Poor Ushio. So they head into the village, and we see some of the other people associated with the Fire Clan who've got like weird fire markings on them and stuff. They're all looking at her, not too pleased, and are led towards where the battle will be taking place. A servant approaches Haibe and says that Ushio has arrived, and Haibe is immersed in flames, and he says, "I picked up a piece of firewood in our yard earlier. Ah, such beautiful flames." And the driver from before has been crucified and has been set on fire. And it's like, "I didn't step into the yard. Oh, pastry chef dream."
That's my favorite part. He just like the pastry chef dream. I was like, my man has one character note. I'm an old man who drives people, and my son is a pastry chef. So he really gets it out.
Oh, God. Haibe says, "You didn't think you'd die today, did you? The stronger their attachment to life, the more beautifully they burn. Ah, I can't wait to see what colors your flames will be, Ushio-chan. By the way, I am buck-ass naked."
Yeah, my dick's on fire.
I would say, I guess that, he can't wear clothes because he's on fire. He's got a long mane of hair that's not burning, so...
Well, Nick, of course anything attached to him, is fireproof, but otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, so this was
I really do like the idea that he has like a cock that's just on fire right now. And the other guy's like, "Pastry, Jesus, chef." Dream. Fuck, that's so funny to me. I love this dude's just burning to death on the cross, like, "My pastry chef son."
Yeah, pastry chef son. I really do like Ushio. This chapter made me feel for her because like, oh, this poor girl. She just get fucking Gero and Kunosaki are her only friends. Are you kidding me? It sucks. And it really makes me want her to have happiness. I want good things to happen for her.
Every other handler or whatever the term they use for him, everyone else has a clan. Like, they have a family innately within their thing. So if the thing is true that there are just no other water users, like, yeah, it is, like, kind of sad. Like, everyone else, like, even the people who we know are also users or whatever. I forget, there is a term for them, but...
I think it is user.
It is a user. Like, even the other users, they have families. They have a whole family, like, set up in their stuff. Like, Hamster Girl has a family and the Beast family and stuff like that. So it's very sad that she doesn't seem to have anybody. Specialist, that's the term. Thank you, Aaron.
Oh, yeah. All right. New Exorcist, Chapter 53, Resolution. Hollow weapons are dangerous. Yep. So Nue warned Gakuro, you mustn't let a level 4 use their hollow weapon. They almost never do, of course, but if you ever find yourself facing one, run. And of course,
why do they almost never do it, Nick?
Because.
But it seems like they just get innately stronger when they do that. Is there a downside to using it?
Of course, they almost never do, of course. Obviously.
Obviously, they never do it. Why would you ever just power yourself up for free? Why would you? That's so stupid. Idiots.
So the explosive level 4 guy says to Gakuro, hey, fight me one-on-one. The lives of 100 innocents are at stake. And Gakuro says, but you said you exist only to fight, but you pull this kind of stuff too, huh? So if I just point out to him that he's a hypocrite, it will make him run away!
He'll give up all of his power!
But, yeah, the explosion guy is just like, actually, no, it's not a character inconsistency. I do this so that I can have fights with people by forcing them into situations where they can't say no to my challenge. Fair enough. He's like, yeah, this is what I did in order to fight Haruhi Otsuki one-on-one. I captured one of his Exorcist companions, and he was forced to accept my challenge. Yeah, fair enough.
There you go.
So he says, I'll give you 1 minute, so think carefully. After that minute, I'm going to start killing hostages. So Suo grimaces, and she's like, okay, I can't let Yajima fight by himself. I got to do something about the hostages, and then we'll fight together. But how? How do I do that? Maybe I should get him to, like, acknowledge my own strength. Why? What do I do? God damn it, she's, like, distracted because, like, oh, he killed my fiance and stuff. So she is getting really frustrated, and then Gakuro, cool-headed Gakuro, always knows when to be calm under pressure, I guess. And he just comes over to her and takes her hand in his and says, you can make sound decisions, senpai, so please don't worry. I'm going to accept his challenge, and while I'm fighting, you get the hostages to safety. And Sue's like, but you can't. He's like, then get back here fast and save me. All right, fair enough.
It's one of the better moments from him, though, of at least, like,
yeah.
I probably will get my shit pushed in, save me. Like, that's actually kind of endearing in a loser way.
Yeah, I do like it, but it's also like, oh, Gakuro, you suck at the same time. So Suo realizes, like, this is important, like an important moment. I had the opportunity to stop Haru from going out and dying, and I didn't say anything to him. I just tried to respect his feelings, and I didn't say anything in that moment. I couldn't make a choice. Yajima, you're a lot like Haru. Really? Oh, really? No! I never would have thought that from everything about him. So she says, Yajima, let me take the head. We're going to mind link here for a second. And she says, how come I have to believe in two things for you, dummy? I'm done choosing paths I regret. The truth is, back then, she wishes that she had encouraged Haru and just wished him luck, basically. But she just didn't say anything. So she says, in that case, believe in one more thing for me too. Trust me when I swear I'll protect you. And Gakuro's like, yeah, of course, yeah.
Absolutely.
Explosion guy's like, time's up. Come on, we're gonna duel the pocket dimension. For some reason. Oh, so then neither of them can leave. That makes sense. So Gakuro says, my name is Gakuro Yajima. Remember the name. So he says, you asked for Haruhi Otsuki's name because he was strong. You're going to be asking for mine anyway.
All right, what's your name? Gazuro! Damn it! Fuck!
No take backs.
I had so much time to get that right.
It goes around as like, and I killed him. His name was Gazuro. That wasn't his name. He just flubbed and then you killed him before he could correct himself.
His name was Globero Yajabaja. No!
I will never forget that name.
It was quirky and weird. Like a mistake.
In fact, just before I ended him, he said, no, wait, what I meant was, huh?
He kept saying, let me take that back, and I kept exploding him with bombs.
The first three didn't kill him. He had plenty of opportunities to, like, regather himself and defend himself, but he kept on saying, hold on, that's not actually my name, and just standing there.
But by that point, I had blown out so many of his teeth, you couldn't understand a thing he said.
So I think his real name might have been... God damn it. I actually really like what the guy says at this point. He says, remember this, however briefly, I am Wanyudo, the craving, blasting, racing wheel of explosion smoke. Boy soldier, foolhardy and pure, moisten my tracks with your hero's blood.
Here's the thing.
What the fuck?
This guy's actually kind of cool. I don't like to say it because I don't like this series, but this dude's cool. His power's cool. I don't know why. He kind of rules.
Moisten my tracks with your hero's blood.
It's
such a hardcore
It's
line.
so fucking good. What the fuck?
Also, his title is The Craving, Blasting, Racing Wheel of Explosion Smoke. What the fuck does that mean?
In my mind, because the series sucks so much ass usually, like, I truly expected this character's, like, fucking lines to be like, Gakuro, I'm a meanie poo-poo and I'm going to beat you up with my sword, or something like that. Not like a fucking actual, like, hard-ass line or whatever.
Oh, man. So he unleashes a bunch of, like, explosion spirits within the pocket space, and he's like, yeah, there's so many of them. And Gaku goes, Xenoblade! And bah, cuts through them all, and they explode harmlessly. And Wanyudo says, ha ha ha, what marvelous accuracy. He literally couldn't miss. You went to an isolated space where there were nothing but explosion ghosts. What do you mean accuracy?
Theoretically, if even one of them hit, it would just start a chain reaction with the rest of the ghosts.
So yeah, Wanyudo starts talking about how it's like, oh yeah, you didn't even check how explosive they were. You're gonna get your limbs blown off if you're not careful. But then Gakuro does the same exact thing that Suo tried.
Stop doing it. This has never worked in this fucking series.
I know what I'll do. He's distracted, so I'll shunpo behind him. And Wanyudo is just like casually turning around, and he's like, if I touch you with this hand, I'll blow you up.
Every character is like, what if I go real fast and attack from behind? Every single character is doing this.
So he goes to try and grab Gakuro. It hits the sword instead, and Gakuro's like, "Oh, he's gonna try. It's just what he tried to do to Senpai." And Wanyudo goes, "Explode!" An explosion goes off between them, and Gakuro goes, "I knew it. His left hand can cause explosions. He said that his hand does that. He said, while putting his hand towards you, explode. He said, this is the symbol I put on Haru Otsuki to blow him up. Yes, his hand makes things explode.
He is entirely themed around explosions. Every motherfucking thing he's done has been an explosion. And Gakuro's like, aha! I figured out you use explosions.
Oh my god.
His name was like, I am Explosion King Murder Bomb. And Gakuro was like, ah! He can blow things up with his hand.
Jesus. So then Wanyudo tries to shunpo behind Gakuro.
Every character, no one in this series has a different strategy. This, like, there must have been, like, the equivalent of Madden in this universe. Where, like, just running really fast behind your opponent was, like, a valuable strategy that everyone just did. Now they have it ingrained in their brain that they're like, I should just run really fast behind him and then they'll never see, they'll just attack and they'll never get to block.
Oh my god. So Wanyudo goes to try and use his explosion hand on Gakuro from behind this time, and Gakuro goes, Xenoblade, and I guess the blades get between them or something.
There is something so fucking funny about the way you have Gakuro say Xenoblade.
Xenoblade!
Because it's always just missing enough enthusiasm to it that you're almost like, was that a declarative statement or was that like an exclamation?
Is that something that the youth say these days?
Does that mean like it slaps? I've heard a couple slang things online.
I think at one point I heard someone say on fleek, but I'm not sure. I blew him up very quickly because it was annoying.
Is this like when Izzy from Digimon would say prodigious?
Gakuro flashes back to his training where he was told, "You still aren't worthy of connecting with the Xenoblade's true essence. First, raise the standard force of each attack. Focus your energy on the initial velocity of your slashes and slam them home at top speed. Make your slashes go faster and hit harder," basically.
Hey, Gakuro, I think I figured out what your problem is. You're not strong enough, and you're not fast enough. I think if you worked on those, you might be pretty good. Wow! And you're like the wise trainer of everyone in that family, huh? Like you trained Shiro, huh? Yeah.
Now let's.
I saw she wasn't running fast enough or punching hard enough, and I pointed those out to her. And now she's good.
Anyway, your new technique needs a name. What kind of thing pairs with Xenoblade? I know. Graham! All right. So his Xenoblade slashes, instead of like having a bunch of them, there's one really powerful one. See, if we don't call it Getsuga Tensho, then we'll get away with it. Oh god. What a chapter of new Exorcist.
Like, again, this dude kind of rules, and his chapter's not like dog shit, but like it's just it's such a tale of two worlds where like this dude rules, but Gakuro sucks so much, and the combat in this series is so fucking funny to me. Oh my god, every time a character shoots behind someone else to immediately get countered, I laugh.
You know those like times where it'd be like, this is a very particular reference. You remember there was that period where everyone hated Roman Reigns, and so he kept on going against like opponents to put him over and stuff. There was one where Braun Strowman was like really over because he was doing insane, awesome shit where he would just like, beat up Roman Reigns. And so it was like, oh, Roman Reigns has been injured. And then he would do something that no one else does. He would come back and beat him up some more after he had already been beaten up. And it was like, wow, this is great. This giant man just keeps on like pushing over trucks and beating up the guy we don't like. And then Roman beat him. So it's like that.
It's like, very much that we are cheering for the character we know is going to fucking lose this match. There's not a chance in the world he wins. He is almost certainly dying here, but it's like, oh yeah, this dude's way cooler than Gakuro. Gakuro sucks.
What if this guy becomes Gakuro's trainer instead? I know a way that you can improve your Xenoblade. What if you made it explode?
What if you taped bombs to it? And then taped bombs to yourself?
It's just all explosion related stuff. My powers don't work that way, I don't think.
Are you sure? Doesn't your fucking ghost bitch have like 400 powers or some shit? I don't know. They keep changing it or whatever.
How many are there? I don't know.
Yeah.
You're boring me. Let's blow up.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to conclude then with Akane-banashi because there is no One Piece chapter this week. Story 113, His True Self. Mike Harrow's performance for his promotion to Shinichi test seemed not to be going well until he hit a line in the story. Does everyone just want me to die? This is, of course, in character as the young master who is seemingly being cast out. He is going to be made into a beggar. He is told by a servant, which is like, yeah, it's going to make you understand the true value of money, so then you'll stop, just lazing around, according to the steward. The young master goes to confront the steward and says, like, hey, I heard that you want to make me into a beggar. Well, then fine. I'll be a beggar. I'll call your bluff if you dare demand that of me. And so, the steward's like, all right, then change into this tattered kimono. So you really want to do it? Yes! Shall I help you get changed into the tattered kimono? And so he's like, no! I don't want to! And suddenly people start to perk up and pay more attention as they realize, like, wait a minute. This isn't, like, funny. He's just, like, playing a guy who's just suddenly, like, really serious and desperate. Yeah. And Akane's like, I've never seen him act this way before during his performances. And Koguma says, like, we're actually getting into the real story now. And I do like this, bit of peanut gallery stuff here because, like, yeah, Koguma's the one who studies all the different Rakugos. Of course, that he would know this story.
Uh-huh.
He says like, "Oh, you don't recognize it? Yeah, it's a story for the Kansai area, but you really should know it. See, in between like the singing and the extra jokes and stuff, he's inflated the telling to this point, but the story is an emotional ninjo-banashi." And so the steward, has confronted the son, and he's going to be punished for all this stuff. This is a story in which the son of a wealthy family experiences rebirth and loss. It's not a silly story like a lot of Rakugo Banashi are. It is a moving and emotional story. Act into it. And Akane is like, my Karu is going to be dramatic and emotional? What? And Koguma says like, yeah, I guess you only know him from recent years, but if you knew him back in the day, this would be his true self. Originally, he was a hardcore, technical, genius actor. And Akane's like, what? Seriously? Him? And yeah, he had been making waves leading up to his Futatsume promotion by going with that style. And Kyoji says, like, yeah, and you know what he can do. You've seen his ability to recreate others. He is a naturally gifted performer at like everything. He masters everything he sets his mind to. And if he had been obsessed with advancing really, really quickly, he would have made Futatsume as fast as Kaisei did, probably. So Akane says, okay, well, how did he arrive at his current style then? And Koguma says, I don't really know the reason, but I can tell you he changed after the incident.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah.
Right. Shinta being expelled.
Oh,
right.
yeah, okay.
Right.
I was like, oh, no, the Cloverfield monster? Like that kind of incident? Like, no, sorry. Just the one everybody knows about. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
right, my dad.
Cloverfield Lane. My character continues with the story. The steward basically has the son go to live in a warehouse for 100 days and shuts the door behind him and says, please show us that you have the patience to last 100 days. And as the doors within the story shut, there's an image of Shigema looking at Maikeru and insisting upon patience. Prior to Shinta's promotion test, Maikeru was asked, like, oh yeah, it's like, I don't really need to go like root for him. Tomorrow's the big day. He's going to attempt, promotion to Shinichi, and Shigema's like, well, he's been supporting you this whole time. Don't you want to go support him? But Maikeru said, it's not like rooting for him is going to help. I know he's going to be fine. He's Aniki. He's going to be a Shinichi whether I'm there or not. And we get, some little bits of flashbacks of like, the two of them like hanging out together. Shinta, of course, being the senior apprentice, while Maikeru kind of goofed around a little bit. And they are told, of course, that, yeah, he really admired Shinta, but his style and personal relationships didn't really change from the time that he started as a Rakugoka until that moment. But then, of course, afterward, everything changed. And we see in the aftermath of Shinta being expelled, Maikeru washes the dye out of his hair. And when Shigema's like, oh, didn't you say if I'm not blonde, I'm not me? And Maikeru says, well, I can't always be the shallow guy coasting through life. I'm your senior apprentice now. And from that point on, he cast his pride aside and worked for the audience. He put aside his own wants and needs. And we see that there's been little bits of that he's been doing throughout the series, sometimes in cases where we haven't really seen his influence. He recommended Koguma to the 4-person event to master Iken instead of himself. He was helping Kyoji with, doing work at a graveyard, giving advice, of course, to Guriko, and advice to Akane. And he has been, the good senpai looking after the people come after him the way that Shinta did for him. Until it got to a point where Shigema asked him, and have you been patient? He's done enough now. And in the story, the young master is approached after 100 days within the warehouse, and the servant says, "Surely you must resent me for this bold proposal. I can only beg your forgiveness." But the son looks at him and says, "But you did this for my sake, didn't you? Before this, I only ever cared about myself. I didn't have a single thought in the world for the feelings of others. But this time in the warehouse has helped me realize something." And of course, this is intercut with shots of Maikeru's junior apprentices, and then with a flashback to some words from Shigema saying, "You've spent 8.5 years dedicating yourself to others. Now is the time to show the mastery of your own craft." And Maikeru thinks this is where the real challenge begins. I'm going to be a Shinuchi, and I'll do it with Aniki's forte. And if there ain't a message in that, like, I'm going to use the style of a person that you fuckers expelled, and I'm going to pass this test, then yeah, it's a big declaration that he is making with this.
Yeah, I think it's some really good stuff. We're getting some more Maikeru sort of context. Like, I feel like you can go through some of the old chapters where we got little bits and pieces of Maikeru, and you're like, ooh, suddenly some of the things he did and said made a lot more sense now. So real good. Good stuff. Nobody tries to move really fast behind somebody else and attack them from behind, so I consider that a pretty big plus in my book.
Yeah, that is it too for Weekly Manga Recap. That's all the series we had. So, Quentin, tell me, the most obvious thing in the world, what was your favorite chapter this week?
Yeah, I hate it, but it's Spy Family. Like, that Spy Family
Spy
chapter's gonna stick with me for a long time. It's so good.
Very, very dramatic, very heart-wrenching, great stuff. And we'll see how things go in chapter 100 next time for that series.
Yeah.
Who's your MVP, though? Your favorite character?
My MVP, I think I'm going to give to Keita from Undead Unluck, Fuko's mom. I really liked just like her explanation of why she feels so much grief about her own luck and she feels like she's letting these people down. It was just like a really good emotional sort of exploration of that character that as you mentioned, I don't think we're going to get a ton from her. But in this way that Undead Unluck kind of like themes characters to concepts, I really did feel the grief in her mind of just like how much she's like, I'm the most fortunate person in the world and I keep letting everyone down. It was good.
That sequence where she gets fired from the gig, has to walk home in her performance costume because she forgot to pack a change of clothes, but then comes across all the people who help her out and give her food and everything. It's a very good summary of what they're going for there. Good stuff.
Yeah.
My character of the week, my MVP, is going to be Yukiko, Taiki's mother from Blue Box.
Aww.
It's very small moments, but just like a very genuine, sweet gesture. Indication of like, hey, she has been helping support him this whole time, and it was nice to give that recognition there and just see her being like, a mom.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah, I like that a lot. The audience, by the way, picked Spy Family as chapter of the week, and Maikeru from Akane-banashi as character of the week.
Absolutely. That is going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap, everybody. We will be back next Wednesday with more. You can follow along on what kind of stuff we get up to, because we usually do the show around 7:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, but sometimes that needs to change up, and you can follow us on the Discord server. It'll be linked wherever this gets posted, and we'll send out a thing whenever we start to do the stream and the recording and all that stuff. We would like to thank everyone who helps to support the show by just like hanging out in the chat room, being on that Discord, just giving us nice feedback, supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/Weekly Manga Recap, where you can get bonus stuff if you become a subscriber on there. Thanks to all of you. We also want to thank Ninja X3i, who kind of helps to, keep track of a lot of things that we normally would not be able to keep track of. maintaining the Google Doc that has a list of all the stuff we've done as recommendations, the MVP and favorite series voting, all sorts of good stuff on there. If you would like to see us cover a particular manga, then you can make a suggestion for that. You can check out all the different stuff that has been recommended to us, add your voice to something, or add a new thing to the list as well. We also want to thank Milejack Stillitz and Winston Cheddar. They create an opening sequence that plays at the beginning of the video version of the podcast episodes. You can see all those at youtube.com/weekly manga recap. The audio versions are on iTunes and on Spotify, and you can find everything on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com if you just want the audio version. And Steve Man occasionally does title card artwork for us as well. You can see his artwork if you just search for Steve Man Art. It's posted in many different places all across the interweb.
Yeah. Super exciting, super cool, good stuff.
That's going to do it. Oh my gosh, I've lost all the adrenaline. I'm going down.
All right, we're leaving, everybody. Goodbye. There's no more amusement. We're no longer clowns for your service. Although I do have a red nose that squeaks when you honk it.
Like legitimately, or just? Wow, yeah, we really nailed that one. Good.
Send them home happy. That's what I'm always saying, right? You gotta go to that next level, Nick. I heard about that dude who had Kevin Hart on his show. You know what he doesn't have? A pretty good clown nose impersonation.